The Science Fiction Writers of America, they changed their name. I don't know when this happened, but now they're the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association. They dropped of America, and they wanted to make sure fantasy's in there because most of these people don't even write science fiction anymore. But SFWA used to be founded to actually help professional science fiction writers kind of band together, do something to where the industry could get better, help with contracts, things like that. It was a professional organization for professional people. And over the last 10 years, it's really just destroyed itself. It's made itself into an irrelevant nightmare of woke identity politics with a bunch of ladies who don't even write science fiction in charge, and then trying to gatekeep out people who do actually write science fiction, and trying to prop up people who are not even professionals. That's really what it came down to. And over 10 years of that, the whole society loses its meaning. It becomes an online social club, like on Discord or Slack or whatever, and that's really all it is. And nobody really helps anybody, and nothing really gets helped at all from SFWA anymore. Well, now it looks like there's some scandals developing within the club that really threaten to absolutely destroy it once and for all, which I'm laughing about because, these people were totally awful to me, have never apologized for the way they treated me, maligned me, libeled me, and it is something really, really funny watching how my success as an author continues to grow while these people continue to circle the drain. We'll get into what's happening in just a moment. My name's John Delarose, everybody. If you're new to the channel, I am a #1 best-selling science fiction author, award-winning comic creator, and I have a wonderful science fiction comic on Kickstarter right now. This is The Hidden Emperor, and it's a story about the Emperor who's been replaced by a clone, and that clone is making bad decisions on behalf of the Terran Imperium. Agent Ayla Rin has to figure out what's going on and, of course, save everybody. And so this is a wonderful, wonderful classic science fiction tale. If you like the stuff from back in the day before everything got ruined with SFWA, you're absolutely going to enjoy this. This is the type of thing that should be winning their awards for the Nebula Awards. But they never will because it's all about clout and about their little petty politics over there and not about great storytelling anymore. So we are, of course, bringing it back. Go grab the complete Ayla Rin stories collection on here because there's a lot. There's not a lot. It's 2 graphic novels, 2 full prose novels for you to catch up on this. And thanks for supporting the channel and supporting our efforts in independent culture here. We can't do it without you. And 22,000 already. Amazing. Appreciate that. That link's in the description below. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Join our community here, my friends, because we got a way better community than what's going on over in the fake professional realm. So I did a little history on my Fandom Pulse Substack where I went into this really long article because I have a lot to say about SFWA. Now, they have been just going downhill for a long, long time. And ever since they allowed fantasy writers in to basically allow romance writers in is really what it came down to. It stopped being about science fiction back then. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. In 2017, 2018, I actually got the ability to qualify for SFWA at the time, which they've since lowered the requirements. You have to sell $5,000 of one book or product or whatnot in order to get a full membership, because that's kind of a professional level of what you'd have to get for a pro advance or a pro something. You're not so much an amateur hobbyist at that point. And so I accomplished that in 2017, turned it in. I accomplished it multiple times over with multiple books, actually. Turned it in and tried to join. And I was getting hate from a bunch of people in the club here. A bunch of pronoun people who were like, "Oh my God, he's terrible. He voted for Trump online," and they conspired against me to try to get me kicked out of the World Science Fiction Convention. As this was going on, my application was still in with SFWA. They spent months on it because they knew I was a much better author and much a more successful author than probably 90% of their base. But they knew it would piss off their base if they let me in. So they're in a we're going to upset people because we're going to recognize somebody for being professional. So we've got to find a way not to recognize them for being professional. And so they did a letter writing campaign to the World Science Fiction Convention. This was done on a forum called Codex. And that letter writing campaign resulted in Worldcon banning me, the World Science Fiction Convention, and then libeling me on their website as a racist bully. And I ended up suing the World Science Fiction Convention. Now, with that, it was a long, drawn-out fight. I won. They spent over $130,000 fighting me for no. It's so stupid. I always tell these people, it's like, just let me exist as a professional author. Like, it's not a big deal. I'm not bothering anybody, and you know that. But it's all about the political clout with them. So they have to push as hard as they possibly can. They have to destroy anybody who doesn't have the politics the same as them, and that's where they're at. So I won. They apologized to me. They had to pay me for defaming me. But SFWA, in the meantime, rejected my application, and they actually said they'd violate their own standards on their website. Because they said this to me. They said, SFWA bylaws section 61C1 gives discretion to the membership credentials committee regardless of qualifications. So when you look at what they say here, they have a stated thing for their website for what the qualifications are supposed to be, and yet they don't have to abide by it. They can literally let anybody in who doesn't qualify, and they can literally not let anybody in who does qualify. So this really isn't a standard whatsoever. This is not a professional organization whatsoever. It's meaningless once you do this, and that's what's been the whole deal for so long. This is a meaningless organization, and it's just starting to be figured out by a lot of people at this juncture. So when I looked at it for this article, they've actually lowered the standard to become a member now because like $5,000 was too difficult for a lot of these people who are fake authors, who are just amateur hacks, to join and then run their little social club, right? So they lowered it to their catalog of paid work equals or exceeds industry standard, which is $1,000. So that means not just one book. So it used to be one book has to get you $5,000, or you'd have to be a real professional. Now all of your books have to get $1,000. So if you started a Kickstarter for $100 and did 10 of them, and your mom backed it 10 times, you have your $1,000. It's so stupid, and that's why these people are just, they're not the quality people that can do anything or accomplish anything at this point. So there's really no purpose to it. Now, what happened was over the weekend, President Jeffy Kennedy resigned. And she, of course, has been one of those people who's been running this organization for years, who does not really have any science fiction bona fides. She doesn't seem to sell that many books. She seems to be, even in romance, she seems to be like a part-time amateur author, but she's in charge of this professional organization. Very weird. And that's been the case before. It was Cat Rambo just before that. And Cat Rambo is a serial short story writer. Again, just sells less than 1,000 copies of her novels, and it's insane to have somebody like that running your organization. It's like, what's going on? These people don't understand what it means to be a professional writer. But she says, I've served in this role for 3 years on the board of directors, more than 7 years. It's been a privilege and honor. Last several months have been demanding on my personal life. I've come to the realization I can no longer provide focused attention SFWA needs for president. She says that she's being a caregiver for her disabled husband, whose progressive condition is worsening. In addition, my stepfather, 20 years, passed away suddenly, widowing my elderly mother for the third time. I'm in the process of taking over her finances and cares. Family obligations will require more attention than I could have anticipated. My legal and fiscal responsibility to SFWA, my personal integrity, prevent me from commenting on any issues related to SFWA administration operations. This is where it gets kind of weird. So let me pause before we get into that part and just talk about the reason she is giving for leaving. I think SFWA is in major trouble, and she's just can't handle it anymore, personally. But I do acknowledge that she has some familial stuff. I reached out to Jeffy Kennedy, who's not been nice to me over the years, and just said, praying for your family and making, I hope all the best for everybody there, because that's the right thing to do. I always do the right thing to do with these people, regardless of how they do things. You gotta show and lead by example, right? But that's the first part. But when she talks about legal and fiscal responsibility to SFWA prevent her from commenting on any issues related to SFWA's administration and operations, that means there's like legal level issues with SFWA's administration operation. That's like, what? That means there's major problems with the organization. It's a disaster. That means there's like lawsuits pending. that means there's administration problems that are on a level that is nutty. And so that's a big red flag right there. And this sudden stepping down without everybody got blindsided from it, from what I've seen, is pretty wild. So the next day, SFWA sends out an email also from the board that says, due to the nature of the employee-employer relationship, we do not feel it's ethical or appropriate to make these matters public. Our duties as board members require us to work in the best interest of SFWA. So there's something going on behind the scenes that's like a massive scandal. I don't know what it is. I don't know if somebody, one of their volunteer, my first inclination, my spider senses, is to say there's like a sex pest or something going on, like within one of their volunteers or on the board or something like that. Because it always seems to come down to that with these science fiction weirdos. If you look at just the history of all these problems, the reason SFWA gave me that they kicked me out was I criticized their president for defending a convicted pedophile on Twitter. And I said, why are you defending a convicted pedophile? And that was the reason they gave me, that I'm not qualified to be a professional science fiction. It's crazy. And it's like, well, instead of questioning why the person involved in your organization is defending a convicted pedophile, you attack a person who's like, hey, this is not a good thing. And this is what happens with whistleblowers. I've been a whistleblower in science fiction against the evils that have gone on here in a long time. You see it with the Neil Gaiman coverage. Like I'm one of the few people who's been talking about this since day one, showing exactly how creepy his behavior's been. He's such a cash cow to the industry. A lot of people in these circles attack me personally rather than Neil Gaiman and actually talk about what's going on there. You'd think the fact that, and it's really funny. I talked to the purveyor of File 770, which is a science fiction news website. And I'm like, what does it take to get positive science fiction coverage of your books? Because, I've got mine when I'm a professional writer. I do very well on my campaigns, as you can see. I do these very regularly. I've been doing it for multiple years, and I've got a fan base. Like, how come my books just don't get talked about over there? Do I have to be a sex offender to do that? Is that what's? Because they talk about Neil Gaiman pretty regularly. And he came back and he said that he actually said I'm worse than Neil Gaiman. And I'm like, what? Like, I've never done anything like remotely like the stuff he's done. And he said it was just because some people protested outside of Worldcon in 2018, protesting against pedophilia in the science fiction community. And I'm just like, wait, I wasn't even there. But because people did that and he wants to associate that with me, I'm opposed to pedophilia. He's therefore for pedophilia, and that makes Neil Gaiman good? I'm very confused by the whole situation. But this is how they all act. They act in these weird circular ways where they just hyperventilate and go insane rather than actually listen to what's going on, listen to professional science fiction writers, and actually try to do something good for science fiction and good for the community of readers. And that's kind of just my take of like where this is probably going. So crazy stuff. We don't know, obviously. Like we will ask your patience and trust as we do our best to fulfill our obligations. The Jeffy Kennedy stepped down, and so now Chelsea Mueller is going to be the president for time being. I looked up Chelsea Mueller. I will give Chelsea some credit. At least she has written some science fiction books. They've not sold very well from what I could tell, but they do exist better than before. And so. The board acknowledges there are several other issues, both ongoing and recent, that have been brought to our attention. Please know we are listening. We will address your concerns and suggestions as we move forward. This is crazy. At the center of many of these issues is the need for greater transparency. And so as you can see, and I showed you, the reason I mentioned my application to SFWA like almost 10 years ago is because there wasn't a transparent process. I met the requirements on their website, and they made up new requirements and said, by the way, our bylaws say that we can just not have any requirements. We can do whatever we want. That's the opposite of transparency. That's kind of lying to people for real. And it was really just like disgusting behavior on their part. And this is par for the course on just how they act, as you can see. And they need greater transparency, clearly. It says, we cannot comment on legal matters or confidential matters such as GriefCom and the Emergency Medical Fund. So again, this is like a red flag here, and I'm trying to figure out what this is about. So legal matters, I know there's been a rumor that SFWA funded Patrick S. Tomlinson, this former science fiction writer who's just a nut job on the internet, to sue an online forum because they were mean to him. And supposedly that cost over $100,000 as well in legal fees, much like the WorldCon suit against. I wonder if SFWA funded WorldCon against me too. Insane, right? Attacking a real science fiction author. It would be interesting for a science fiction author organization to do. But hey, I don't know who funded that. But the rumors are that that Patrick got his lawsuit against this forum funded by SFWA because he doesn't have the money himself. He's never made enough money in writing to do this kind of thing either. And so his lawsuit failed. He ended up having to pay the forum owner a lot of money. And maybe that just wasn't being transparent with the members and where their funds were going. Crazy, right? GriefCom, that sounds weird. Like there's a grief there. Again, that lends back to possibly a sex past. And then emergency medical fund being mentioned. Like, so is there embezzling going on with an emergency medical? I mean, is there this many problems with the organization? This is crazy. Crazy. And so this opens up a lot of questions I didn't even have before they made this statement. And of course, everybody's talking about it on Blue Sky, the fake social network. Here's Patrick S. Tomlinson. And this one woman said there's been a drop in volunteer staff through resignations, one question-raising termination. That's, again, this comes back to my spider senses on the sex pest thing. The fact that it's been largely obscure, unknown by the majority of members seems to also be part of this. Much happened on a not broadly accessible channel, specifically the Discord server, which possibly the board meetings themselves, while the minutes are archived, seem to have been going through a long period of being or under-advertised to the general body. So they've been hiding their board meetings of what's going on there, and they don't have enough volunteers to keep the organization running, is what I'm reading right now. So this is crazy. If someone was indeed terminated quietly because of bad behavior, could spell scandal for SFWA and explain why Kennedy quickly resigned and took flight from the organization. Wild stuff. Well, I can tell you right now, I'm researching into all this because, this is a corrupt organization. It would not surprise me if there's embezzlement going on. It wouldn't surprise me if there's sex pest stuff going on. A lot of creeps involved here because they let anybody in. They didn't keep it to the professional level. And that is what happens when you take an organization, you change what it's supposed to be about and change what it's supposed to do, and you just let it go by the wayside. All right. Couldn't happen to a nicer organization. I've reached out to the new president, the Mueller lady, to see if she, will open up dialogue with real science fiction authors and actually try to right the ship. I'm not really expecting much as usual, but I always try because, I always make sure I am at the forefront of these cultural items for science fiction, comic books, and more. And hope you appreciate the news. Leave a comment down below with what you think about this, my friends. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Check out my new graphic novel, The Hidden Emperor, on Kickstarter. Support real science fiction, my friends. We are just getting started here, and this is a beautiful, beautiful book. I would love to get this up to 25,000, 30,000 because we have so much to add to this book on the stretch goals level that it's really exciting. Thanks so much again for your support.